news report, and
You
I
know,
have none other than Jon Stewart, former AWA wrestler, is now a UFO investigator as well as Bigfoot investigator. How are you doing today, sir? You got some news for us?
yeah, I'm doing well. It was an exciting week for me, Hannibal. You know, uh, I'm really excited to do whatever part I can to help your podcast. Not that you, with over 400,000 viewers, need help, but if there's anything that on my end, that in the UFO world that I can take eyes on, or I have a little bit more uh, uh, ability to ask more people about it. I'm really, really tickled to death to come here and report on some things and clear some things up regarding several instances and issues with the UFO community. So thank you for having me on once again. But it was an exciting week because you actually I went to the library and did microfilm because this is part of my story for you. Being a good, trying to be a good investigative journalist, to bear out the very basic philosophy that I have with this whole situation. It's not real sexy, but I think you and your very sensible viewers, and I mean that sincerely, will say after we speak about it, we'll go, it makes a lot more sense than Iran having a submarine 30 miles off of the coast of New Jersey.
Yeah, and someone's bringing this up. I don't think, Gabriel, that they're actually going to do disclosure on News Nation tonight. There's a guy, a former special forces helicopter pilot, that's
Right.
going to talk about his experience with crash retrieval. But that's again, it's a bit. They're building it up well, but I don't think that's going to be like for everyone. Okay, disclosure has happened. Let's
Yeah, I
drop
personally
the.
talked to Ross Coulthart this week, who's the reporter on the story. Here's what I can tell you on that. And folks, I was not even prepared to talk about this, so I'm glad Hannibal brought it up. I talked to Ross. I've been talking to Ross for basically 4 years. The helicopter pilot is vetted with three or four sources, completely documented. His DD-214, which is the military version of this is where I'm sending you, where you were or I was stationed, and operations I was involved with, and he's bringing forth. He and Ross Coulthard, the reporter, are bringing forth three or four of his soldiers that were with him on some of these operations, and Ross is claiming you will see a video of an egg-shaped craft being taken away, um, being strung up to an army helicopter. So this is going to get really, really interesting. Really, and if it's real, if it looks completely legit, which I really don't think Ross and News Nation would let something that wasn't at least on the surface authentic come on the screen. This is going to be really interesting, folks. I think we all should watch for it. And I agree with Hannibal, but just take a step back and look at it for what it is.
And let's just bring up one more thing. It's now been 72 hours since Stephen Greer said he was going to give us disclosure. So, Stephen Greer, where's the bombshell today? Have you heard
Yeah,
about this?
yes, I have. Stephen Greer lent me video in consultation on my documentary, which how could you be forever grateful. He has worked with me as far as how to be an investigator, how to sidestep the government landmines of FOIA and whatnot. And I believe, and I have not talked to him about this. I just told him if there's anything I can do to help out your disclosure in 3 days, let me know. I believe from what he said that this helicopter pilot, I think this is what Stephen is talking about. Dr. Greer is talking about. I don't know this for sure. I'm just guessing. But yes, he did say 72 hours thereabout. So let's look until Sunday, maybe Monday, and to see what all transpires. It's going to be a really interesting weekend.
Very good. Well, I'll let you take it away and tell us what you have here related to this, your conclusion on the New Jersey drones, which, by the way, Donald Trump, we're the 18th today, he says he's going to say what they are on the 21st.
Right, which bears out even more my story of what I think my investigation has found, and what I know to be true is possibly, again, not the sexiest answer, but a quality and answer that has a lot of things backing it up. Hannibal, the things that are definite, that the United States government is not interdicting these craft, right? We don't see surface to air missiles. We don't see attack helicopters. We don't see um, air assets being engaged from the surrounding Air Force and naval bases. So the government is not engaging, or they call it interdiction, with any of these drones, as much as we know. So that's suspicious. Number two, which is a definitive fact, 95% of them have the FAA anti-collision navigational lights. Well, non-human intelligent craft could care less probably about that, and something from Japan, from China or Iran probably wouldn't want anti-collision lights, because if they're doing something covert, you would want that disguised as much as possible. I think everyone watching this is agreeing with me. So the government isn't too concerned in interdicting them, and we've got craft that are following federal government FAA regulations, right? I mean, it's pretty clear on that. I'm not talking about these super fast moving. I'm going to get to that yet, and I have documentation from the past on that that I think will draw all this together. Hannibal, thank you for indirectly sending me to the library. I'm going to read you an article, and I'm just going to highlight a few things because we don't have 9 million hours. Police, sheriff deputies, highway patrol officers, and Air Force guards reported a rash of sightings of unidentified flying objects. Law enforcement officers reported mysterious bright lights that hovered, cruised, and zoomed over the skies. Sheriff's helicopter crews were baffled as the craft was was sped past their helicopter at over 880 miles an hour and 600 feet in the air. Government or police helicopters tried to follow them, but could not get any closer to the fast moving objects. March Air Force Base in the desert also talked about these mysterious, brightly lit objects in the sky. Okay. Boy, that sounds very familiar. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Local government authorities, the bombshell. Local government authorities are frustrated with the federal government's non response to the local agency's investigation and inquiries. Sounds like a month ago in New Jersey. That was a story from 1977 in a Los Angeles suburb newspaper. So, what am I getting at? It is my opinion, because the government uses familiar playbooks, pages out of the same operation, the same playbook over and over and over again. It's something we can't count on by the government. They're not very imaginative. And what is the same playbook that it seems like was repeating in New Jersey, that has been repeating since the 40s? Secret government entities having developed and are testing secret craft. Only a handful of governments know about this, not including the FBI, CIA at times, and even members of the Pentagon. Remember, I think I told you, Hannibal, a while back, that there were many people from the Pentagon who told me and others, "Hey, look, we're doing a job here. We don't know what's going on in these secret government areas like Area 51 and the Dugway Proving Grounds. We never know, so we don't get told anything. That's almost like a second government." And it's a familiar thing. Not even the local police, the local FBI, the local state government, and again, many of the federal government agencies are never told of the secret testing of these aircraft, and that has been proven since the 40s, folks. And I just cited you in 1977. Oh, this was the F-117 Nighthawk, the first testing of it, which occurred at Tonopah and then at Holloman Air Force Base. Um, this was this was an article test from one of the first tests of that craft. So, with that being said, I then researched, well, who, let's talk about these drones. Many of them are high speed, not light speed, and they're not disappearing, but very high speed, size of small SUVs. People are claiming. I think everyone can agree to that. And then I find this: the company, the corporation, is called Archer Aviation, and I'm sorry to get my notes here. And they are perfecting testing with in accordance to government contracts over there was over $142 million of government contracts for eVTOL, electric, vertical takeoff and landing drones, vehicles. Um, and so when we think of drone, we think of a Christmas present that's the size of maybe a pizza box. These are the size of, again, small SUVs, small cars. And this Archer Aviation, we called them. We talked about, do you are you related to some of these drones being sighted on the East Coast? And they told myself and a couple of other investigators, no comment. And I have proof right here. I don't know if you can see it. Um, that they have several multi-million, $100 million contracts with the United States government. We're seeing craft 30 miles offshore arising out of the Atlantic Ocean, period. Well, you're seeing them arise out of the horizon. There is no possible way Iranian, Chinese, or any other unauthorized submarine could get close enough to the East Coast, get past our submarine warning SOSUS nets. These are the sonar nets that are strung along the Atlantic coast. Folks, it's not going to happen. I think in part of this secret testing, and remember, the testing is first done at like an Area 51 or a very secret base. It then moves to a public, not so clandestine Air Force or Navy base, and then they try to test these craft with practicality in the real world, so to speak, real world exercises over neighborhoods, over regular terrain of the United States, which we're seeing. So, knowing that a submarine from an especially an aggressive actor like Iran or China could not park itself 30 miles off the coast, I believe, and this is a part of the story that is my conjecture, I believe that these drones are also being deployed from a submarine off the coast of New Jersey or New York, and also in an effort to see how we can deploy these. Are these deployable from offshore? And then do they have enough battery? Do they have enough tactical advantage to come from the ocean on towards the United States or on towards an aggressor's land? And I think that's what we're seeing. So, in my opinion, for the main wave of all of these drones, I believe based on historical documents, newspaper accounts, from what we always have heard since the 40s, that this is a very high level government testing of drones that are going to be used for either counterintelligence, surveillance, um, or some sort of a offensive weaponry system, which drones we've seen in the Ukraine can do that. And I think that way because again, the government is not attacking them. They're not interdicting these drones, the large ones. And most of the people you hear are the same in 45, 77, 1985. We're very frustrated. We're not getting any answers from the government. You're not getting any answers from the government because the government doesn't truly know. There's only this subset of the government that is in charge of testing these drones. And then with Archer Corporation telling us no comment, I think you can draw a tangential line that they are at least part and parcel with their government contracts of testing these drones. Now, I wanted to bring up one thing. It doesn't that doesn't. Now, what about the other 5% of the drones? Look, this happened at Christmas time. As much as people want to roll their eyes, people started looking up in the sky. They were hyper vigilant on looking for drones. I think a lot of other drones that people saw things flying at 300, 400 feet with lights on, Christmas presents, or were other people taking their drones, other citizens taking their drones and going up into the skies from their homes, from their neighborhoods, and testing too. And I think that has a large part, okay, of a lot of the drones that we saw because this didn't happen over Christmas time. And I read an article like 160,000 drones were sold in the United States last year, retail. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if I read that wrong. That's a hell of a lot of drones. So I think that also makes up for some of the accounts, the 5%. Now, I've got a very interesting um, mention about which I believe the non-human intelligent craft. These are the crafts that are going, they're disappearing, um, they're going at tremendous speeds. Hannibal, as we've seen in so many times with the new ICBM missile test in the past, with new aircraft in the past, the Apollo, Mercury, Gemini space launches, and those spacecraft going into orbit. How many videos have we seen of alleged UAPs and UFOs following those missiles, following those airplanes, following those spacecraft, monitoring and whatnot? I believe that this new testing by the government and the Archer Aviation Corporation did trigger a response from some non-human intelligence. I don't think that's crazy because of, again, past occurrences that have happened in our country. Again, since the Gemini, Mercury, and Apollo space capsules, and there's that famous UFO footage, whether it's real or not, with the ICBM. How many Air Force people have we talked to where non-human intelligence allegedly have shut down missile bases, have followed military craft? We had the Foo Fighters in World War II. I think when you do something aggressive like this on mass scale or something extremely high tech, which this checks all the boxes in New Jersey, you might trigger some sort of observation from non-human intelligence, and that is my report.
Gabriel wants to know about the drones that allegedly are changing, morphing from an orb to a drone.
Yeah, this I think would be the non-human intelligent craft that are monitoring what's going on, this mania, so to speak, on the East Coast. And this is history. This isn't Jon Stewart making this up. This is military people, pilots, our video that we citizens have seen throughout the past 70 years of something in the sky that's anomalous and that is monitoring, chasing, following missiles, spacecraft, and combat airplanes. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that this government secret testing has triggered some non-human intelligence. I don't think that's crazy at all to extrapolate that.
Gabriel is wondering if you heard anything about where Tesla's papers went.
Tesla that in regards to what? Oh, Nikola Tesla. Well,
Yeah.
the FBI took them. I mean, I think the New York hotel told that men came that they thought were from the FBI. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know men came and totally swept that room, which is just standard again, standard operating procedure of the way FBI and CIA work. You eliminate someone and then you clean the room. So that's an actual term. You clean, sanitize the room of anything that might lead back to covert intelligence operations. And they do this, Hannibal, we talked about this. They do this with human beings. When they're done with you, whether you get assassinated or you just get dropped off the face of the earth, or they put you in a mundane job, they sheep tip you. It's a intelligent term of removing anything of your bio or anything physically you may have that could be traced directly back to intelligence agencies.
So why do you think they're testing them in such a populated area rather than a place like the Area 51 surroundings where nobody is?
Great question. So from what I know as a historian and from what I've read and what I've witnessed for 50 years since I've been interested in this in the UFO phenomenon and conspiracies and whatnot, the secret aircraft is tested at a high, super high testing facility, Area 51, or they call it the Nellis Test and Firing Range. Then it's brought to a less secure base like Holloman, Edwards, Kirkland, high security, but not super intense as Area 51. And the last phase of a super secret aircraft testing, unfortunately, and I don't agree with this, is testing it over civilian population. Now, unless you want to build a city with all of the electronic components in it, let's say in the desert of Area 51, which would be incredibly expensive, I would agree as a general running these programs that look, we've got to test these craft over civilian population. Why? Because the civilian population is loaded with anomalous activity that we need to make sure the drones can bypass or not get interfered with. That would be electronics, high tension wires, other air traffic from airports, other human beings, the traffic on the ground, 5G network, waves in the air. Because if you were going to use these drones in China, you're going to be putting these most likely over civilian populations at time. They have to be. There has to be an application. They have to make sure that these drones can work in real world applications with all of the other things that we see in everyday life in a typical neighborhood or a typical urban environment. So that, and I don't agree with that. And I have another a newspaper report when one of the F117s crashed into the forest, and the government was so relieved that it didn't crash in a civilian, in a civilian neighborhood, even though it was being flown over a civilian neighborhood. So unfortunately, this is part of the testing of the government. We have to have real world application, and that means flying it in urban areas.
Leanne wants to know, why would you test that many at one time? What if you ended up losing all of them?
That's a great question. And I would think that from what we saw in Ukraine, from just our knowledge of how drones operate in the military, or at least my knowledge, um, these these drones are extremely useful when they are in a coordinated attack. Fighter aircraft are flown in coordinated formations. I don't think that it's not unreasonable to think that the drones would somehow fly in formation. Again, standard operating protocol from aviation with the government and the military, taking a page from the 30s and applying it in 2024. I don't mean to keep harking back on that, but it's true. We still fly in formation, and I would think that drones fly in formation. Now, somebody more akin with aviation could probably give you a better answer of why I know the wedge formation is the wedge formation is something just with security. You're bunching people planes up and drones up. So I think that, again, I go back to, I think that's just a familiar page out of a familiar government tactic of flying in formation and testing every other way that we can use these drones. So seeing them in formation totally takes away the non-human intelligence aspect and harkens back to typical government playbook from the 1930s.
Someone wanted to know, as far as who cleaned out Tesla's safe that you were just talking about. Did you hear that the person was supposedly related to President Trump?
Well, there is speculation that Trump's uncle, I believe, had something to do with that. And I had somebody sent me something about Trump's uncle being interviewed by somebody that was related to my alien interview documentary. I'm not plugging that. I'm just saying that Donald Trump's uncle was very entwined in the program, from what I've been told and from what we've seen.
Nothing wrong with plugging your alien interview
Well,
documentary.
you know, God, I'm so paranoid of the grifter tag that
Yeah,
People
there's a
that's
lot
why
where
I'm off social media. People are just horrible, and so, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was wondering, did you delete your X account?
Yeah, I deleted everything, and I don't know how to delete Reddit yet, so I will. That's the Reddit is like the Thunderdome of hostile, mean people. I was
Yeah.
always a cool kid in the jock in high school and college, fraternity brother. I was a pro wrestler my freshman year at Memphis State. I'm not bragging. I'm like, I was always kind of a cool kid. Been like bullied, for like 5 years with this going in front of the UFO community. So I don't need it that at my age. I'm still on YouTube, so I can interact with people there, and they're not as hostile as X and Reddit. But yeah, I'm totally off social media. Like I told people, I came there to show you to tell you what was going on with every step of my investigation, bring out the alien interview, answer any questions. Everyone still has my email. I will answer people's questions till this coming November, 52 weeks from the release of my documentary. That is what I owe the community, and that's what I'm going to do.
AG wants to know what is the new documentary, and we're going to get into the other people's questions after that.
Well, sure. My new documentary is a reinvestigation of the 1997 Alien interview. They call it the Forgotten Documentary. That creepy, weird, non CGI, very low produced, meaning it was one shot. It didn't have any takes, bad lighting. It was darkened by the production company. It came in a blue hue originally. And I just wanted to find out the truth and find out who was Victor that went in front of the camera and talked about this bizarre film, The Alien and the Project called Aquarius, which I believe is an actual project of the retention and interrogation and examination of all things off planet beings in regards to Homo sapiens sapiens. And the aperture on the investigation opened up from trying to prove if that being was real or not, which we'll never prove unless we have the body, puppet or real. But the aperture opened up on the investigation, to Project Aquarius, this crazy facility called S4, the other alien retention facility called S2 Alpha, south of Area 51. I have 8 military and intelligence whistleblowers that came forward, and a massive leaker that helped me get a transcribed report from the Defense Intelligence Agency that runs this entire program about this film. Whether it's a government psyop, whether it's an authentic film of an alien, I hope people appreciate after $27,000 in 6 years. I still can't tell you yes or no. I have my personal feelings, but I still can't tell you yes or no because no one has debunked it in Hollywood, and everyone in the military is telling me it's authentic. So I can't say it, but the weirdness, the craziness, the electronic incursion on my phone. I was told specifically that the NSA got a court order to tap my phone with a program called Stingray Centipede. It's a counterintelligence program to see what I know. I was told by another intelligence community member that that it could be a foreign government tapping my phone to get any information that I'm concealing from the government, which I wasn't. I was very open with the DIA. Scary stuff that I simply asked. My wife's car broken into with nothing taken but papers thrown everywhere. Um, my email stolen 3 times on my phone, on my iPhone. Apple Corporation telling me they don't know how it ever happened. My only thing is, why did all this happen if the video was fake? People don't that's for people to figure out. And if you go to huntingvictor.com, you'll see the documentary link. It's $8. It's like buying me a cup of coffee. And I don't say definitively like I'm promoting like a hoax. I don't know the truth. But when you listen to my story, you listen to the things and see the things that were sent to me, the names of CIA people that I reveal, the name of the man that ran the Project Aquarius at S4 and S2 Alpha, his picture that his son sent us. People are going to raise their eyebrow, which is all I've ever wanted people to do, to be like, wait a minute, something is bizarre with this film. And we think John touched on it. So, and I chat GPT. I'm so grateful. I know it's a computer, did a really nice, um, uh, uh, did a really nice wrap up of the film. It just says, he didn't prove whether it was real or not, but but his, investigation techniques should bear, thought of anyone else that something is going on with the government that they're hiding. What they're hiding is yet to be seen. So thank you for letting me say that.
Very good. And by the way, I was just in Las Vegas. $8 will not even buy you a cup of coffee there. You're looking at
No,
about 12 bucks there.
no. Yeah, and I get like 725 of that. I already spent $300. I'm not patting myself on the back, folks. I'm just telling you, I am so anti-grifter, I took $300 on behalf of the UFO community. I donated it to the Gary Sinise Foundation for combat veterans and whatnot. And so I'm trying to make it a whole. I've got $27,000 of my own money, and believe me, my wife reminds me of that every day how much money I spent. But that was my decision, and yeah, it's super inexpensive, and what we lack in Netflix grandiosity, god damn, I give you a lot of facts, information, data, and names. What documentary gives you names and codes for these programs? And emails that were sent to me, and the identity that I feel is Victor, who I won't say, because if anybody, I don't want to have a spoiler alert. So I did my job, and I hated documentaries since I was a little kid that never gave you the money shot at the end. We never find Bigfoot, right, folks? Never find Bigfoot. We never find the missing girl. We never see inside the UFO craft. We never really see Loch Ness monster. There's always a million questions hanging at the end of of every documentary in existence, except mine. Which is why I haven't gotten a lot of emails of people still asking questions. I think I've answered every single question in regards to that film and Project Aquarius, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, you got a lot of fan questions on here.
Okay.
Andrew Hessing, he says these are not tests. He thinks it's ridiculous. He says these are military drones deployed to monitor the unusual amount of orbs, many not visible to the naked eye. What do you say
Now
about
wait a
that?
minute. I never once see, this is how shit starts. You know, I never once said what their objective was. Hannibal, did I? I just said these are
You did
military
not.
drones.
No, you
Thank
did
you,
not.
sir. I have no idea what their mission is. If this is, and I'd be very upfront, is this the final testing phase? Is this a phase where they are looking for something, a terror cell, and nuclear device, a type of car, a semi truck, something else on the ground? Or is this simply testing? I don't know what they're testing. So please don't put words in my mouth. I do feel, with all of what all I've showed, that these are government, corporation, uh, toll program drones that are being deployed. For what reason, I have no idea.
Sage Pup here says he was a Navy veteran from 1990 to 94 in Charleston, South Carolina, big wrestling city. I witnessed orbs coming out of the ocean way back then. Do you have any more information about the orbs?
Yes, and I hope we can just discuss this quickly about the 2027 that Jeremy Corbell came out, that I came out a year ago and was telling people. And I would like to bring this up on your program. I think that would be a
Sure.
good short. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I bring out these stories months, years before, and then somebody else brings them out, and they're the hero. And I'm crying over spilt milk. And I will get to the orbs. Here's okay. Audio. Okay.
Now, can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you one thing quickly about Corbell. You're a wrestling guy. I mean, this guy always he claims he's dangerous and is some type of martial artist. Online, there's no matches, no grappling tournaments, no kickboxing
Right.
matches. There's a couple of demonstrations which anybody could do. Do you think this guy's like exaggerating his quote unquote level of dangerousness? I mean, you never see Haku going around telling everyone how dangerous he is.
The words on him. I've been a It's going to sound bragging. I'm not. I'm making Haku's point. I have been a grade school, high school, college, semi-pro football player. I've been a professional wrestler on and off for 30 years. Um, I have never once told anyone I'm the toughest son of a gun or I can beat up people. You, when you know what you're capable of, you don't talk about it. So it's suspect that Jeremy says that how lethal or dangerous that he is when he's not in a competitive or coordinated, um, you know, martial art type competition. And 99% of the tough people that I know that are truly tough people, they're the nicest teddy bears in the world, and they never speak of how tough or how rough they are. Hannibal, I'm sure you've at least told this like I have, is that being in pro wrestling, we have a tremendous propensity for absorbing a lot of pain. And that's it. That's all I've ever said. So that's suspect that Jeremy would say that, and that's tasteless. It's tacky to tell somebody I'm tough and dangerous, and I've tried to stay
Yeah.
away from throwing Jeremy under the bus, but that's tacky.
I'm not throwing him under the bus. I'm just
No, I know
saying, I
you're
mean,
not.
that's like Greer, and I know you like Greer, but constantly saying I can bench press 400 pounds. It's like,
Yeah,
you
right.
guys
Who
are in the
cares?
UFO business.
Right, right. It's not related. No, and I don't mean you are throwing Jeremy under the bus, but people have tried to egg me on for 4 years to throw Jeremy. I just want to stay away from that. That's all I meant. You weren't. I don't think you were. I think you bring up
Yeah.
a valid point. Let's stay on top. And thank you for saying that, by the way. Agree with you. Let's stay on topic. No one cares what Jon Stewart drives, what I do for a living outside the UFO world, how much I can bench press, what's in my bank account. That's not important. And bringing stuff like that up, including Greer, is ridiculous and pulls us away from the truth. And I want to help the UF community be more propelled towards the truth. And sticking on message is important to do, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
I just wanted to bring it up because you know combat sports a bit,
Right,
and like
right.
I don't think you've heard of him being in UFC or anything or having any
No,
pro
no,
fights. And I'm only saying
no.
this because I don't like that he's going around acting like he's some big tough guy when he's not. But to me, it takes away from what he says in the
Of course it
UFO a
does.
little bit.
Of
But
course it
let's
does.
get on to what you were going to say. I hate to digress. I just want to bring that up for the
No,
people that aren't into combat sports, just watching this for UFO, that
you're a
might
good
take him at his
digressor
word.
too. You're a good digressor. I'm serious. I love coming on this show, by the way. You bring up you trigger me in a good way. No, the orbs, folks. I'm just saying, 2 days before Christmas, a relative, she's a corporate pilot, they took an orb over the Oak Ridge nuclear facility. Hello, at 40,000 feet. What do I think about the orbs? Absolutely, the number one answer. What are the orbs? Absolutely non-human intelligence. I do think that geologically at times can create some sort of a luminescent ball for very short time. I do think I agree with an astronomer. I have seen this at my summer home in the winter. Venus, it's called the dancing planet, because when the clouds get when the light gets reflected through the atmosphere and the clouds, it looks like it's jumping around. I do think some of the orbs that are stationary, way high up in the sky for the entire night, would be Venus. But these glowing orbs, these moving orbs, these luminescent orbs, that's in my opinion non-human intelligence all the way. And I will tell somebody something. When you see a light, if it's red, green, white, and it's like matted or muted, that is most likely craft. In my research, all the people I've talked to, a non-human intelligent craft is like this. It's luminous. Whether it's blue, white, green, orange, red, it's like a translucent, luminous, glowing. It's a distinct characteristic of many UFO craft that people I think should put in their head if they're trying to distinguish what they're seeing in the sky. And usually it doesn't blink like the FAA warning anti-collision light. So you see that glowing, luminous color, whatever color, but it's glowing, it's luminous, it's phosphoretic. I tend to think that that is 100% a UFO, and I think the orbs are completely, absolutely a real phenomenon that is tied to non-human intelligence. Thanks for
And
the question.
you were about to say something about 2027, which
Yeah,
Elizondo has alluded toward. Leslie Keane,
Who was
uh,
the guy that brought it up a year and a half, 2 years ago?
apparently you.
Sorry. So, this is crazy. Now, I told you I got emails from all crazy stories and whatnot, starting in 2019. About, well, geez, it's gonna be about 2.5 years ago. I get an email, and he tells me that he is a retired scientist with a master's degree in electrical engineering, that some of his systems are patented, that some of his systems were in the space in one of the space shuttles, and this is why he caught me on a podcast and he wants to tell me this. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I didn't tell anybody for about a year and a half. And he said, "Look, I'm a scientist. My company was hired by the government, the United States government. And lo and behold, I ended up working side by side with many DARPA scientists, at times in DARPA facilities, DARPA, the defense uh, program that does all of this crazy testing and whatnot." And he said this quote, "From my years working alongside DARPA, he wasn't a DARPA scientist, for my years of listening to the meetings, reading the memos, listening to the collegial talk amongst the scientists, it is my opinion, being a firsthand witness, that DARPA is currently and has been developing systems that for a defensive nature of an alien invasion." And of course, I wrote back to him and said, "Can you please clarify this? I don't want to go on the internet and being looked at like a nutcase. Invasion." He wrote back, "I don't back down from that verbiage. There is a he upcoming, not upcoming, there is a imminent, no, not imminent. There was a, I wish I had it. There is a planetary invasion of non-human intelligence that is on this way to our planet." And he said, "And I am telling you this because DARPA is building and has built defensive weaponry to repel this invasion. And I don't walk back from the word invasion." So I wrote him again. He kept it quiet for a year and a half. He wrote me, "Did you read my essay?" Hannibal, I've said this, I have ADD and I get a million emails. So I'm like, "No, I go back and I see the essay." And he wrote an essay of what he has learned and heard from scientists discussing non-human intelligence and what briefings he had to read to help these scientists with these defensive applications. Excuse me. And just a couple of highlights of it. He said that yes, they are more intelligent than us, but they're not. Their mentality is beehive. It's very clinical when it comes to them and human beings on the planet Earth. Again, a familiar thing. They don't want to interfere with us, but they're not going to let us blow up the planet. And he said that they're not infallible. As they become more intelligent and more technical, and their ecosystems and biosystems are more frail, they actually become more susceptible to things that are on this planet or interplanetary or interstellar travel. And he said, and that's why a lot of the aliens that we encounter are part android, part uh, biological tissue, robot and biological tissue to withstand interstellar travel. Very interesting. And he said this: they don't care. They're not going to let us blow us up. They're not going to interfere. But that doesn't mean that they are worried or they are concerned about taking whatever resources they need from this planet. And he said they are coming back to retrieve their comrades and their equipment. That's what he said to me a year and a half ago. Then Jason Sands comes forward 6 months ago. He was just on the Julian Dory podcast. Jay, and I believe Jason's story. I've he's got the documentation, and he said he was eavesdropping on behalf of the government for private contractors in the military, contracting system. And he heard, hey, this is what the bean is telling us. They're coming back for their craft and, and bodies. Exactly what the scientist said privately to me a year and a half ago. So Jason Sands didn't know that. So we have a familiar story. And the scientist said around 2027. Now, in my alien interview, Victor comes back. Victor, the whistleblower, who allegedly smuggled out this film, which he didn't, but he was the whistleblower that brought it to TV, to this documentary company. He said in an '08 follow-up documentary, don't plan for a 20th anniversary of this documentary because you might not be around. In 20 years from 2007, when that was shot, it was shown in '08. 20 years from 2007, folks, is 2027. So we have somebody from 25 years ago saying something. We have somebody privately emailing saying the same thing. We have Jason Sands coming forward 6 months ago saying the same thing. And now we have Jeremy Corbell, who I have no doubt is in touch with military, Pentagon officials to some degree, being told the same thing. Now, Jeremy is saying that this is a lie, that people like me are useful idiots probably and are being told this to perpetuate, knowing I will go on podcast to talk about it, even though I didn't for a year and a half, that it's going to be some sort of fake alien invasion. It's not really going to be an alien invasion. And I just go back to, well, what did Jason Sands in the 90s hear from one scientist to another scientist? The bean is telling us they're coming back for their equipment and bodies. So the fact that we have Jason Sands testimony, I don't know if it's a lie. I don't know. All I say is this, folks, keep your eyes and ears open and be on the ready. That's my advice. And thank you for letting me share that story.
Joseph wants to know any idea what race of aliens this would be.
Absolutely no idea. But the scientists did talk about the grays a hell of a lot. The scientists that rub shoulders with DARPA. No other races were ever mentioned. He did talk uh, uh, a lot about the gray aliens, the gray beings.
So, is there
And can I say
anything we?
one more? Can I
Of
say one more
course, yeah.
thing? Here's I I am not crying spilt milk. I want to be the guy that's known for bringing the 27 story and there was another story that came out about the Lockheed crash retrieval firefight and somebody else brings it up and it's like they invented it. Here's my problem with Jeremy coming out right now with the 2027 story like he is he's the only person, he's got proprietary knowledge of this, is that when somebody like me comes out with the story, it a year later, somebody like Jeremy who's being whispered in the ear by other Pentagon officials. He says that himself, is that it has time now for that story to be how was it taken? How are the people reacting to Jon Stewart telling that story? And we've got months now to manipulate and manage the story. And now, when it comes out, it's going to be a fake alien invasion. Come on, you have to jump on these stories when they're brought forth, whether they're real or not, because you can't let them be reconstituted and manipulated. And I think Jeremy's story, my story, a year and a half ago, is being manipulated and massaged. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Is there anything we could do about this alleged invasion?
You know, again, proven by history, and people hate when people say this, but it is true. It's obvious that they're not a a threat to us. Um, that they're more of the DNR, the game and fish, or just I told this on your show before. It's we are the fish in the stream. Sometimes the fish and game are going to come, tag us, capture us, take semen, take fish eggs. Sometimes there's going to be a knucklehead kid that throws rocks at us. Sometimes there's a fisherman that captures us, wants to eat us. Other times a fisherman just wants to catch us and throw us back. I think it's the gamut of that with extraterrestrials. They are not concerned about us. And Hannibal, what I would tell your viewers from the bottom of my knowledge and my heart and my sanity is that you have to understand they do not care about us. And I don't mean like that in an evil way. They just don't care. They're bees in a hive. They're here to do a job or take care of a mission or whatever that may be. And if and human beings are an afterthought, and that's an ego. It's an ego in deflation to most people. I have gotten my ego surrounded, ego, um, you know, directed to the point where I'm not on the top of the food chain anymore. There's a higher intelligence, and I just have to accept that. And I think that's what I challenge people to do, just to realize that they don't care about you. They're not out to harm us, obviously, and keep your eyes and ears open. It's I think the greatest advice.
As far as Jason Sands, I mean, he does have some wild stories. The one that I find a little hard to believe is he kind of gives the tall white story of Charles Hall credibility, where a lot of people say that that Charles Hall thing is a work, as we call it in wrestling. Is that just his PSD messing with him, PTSD, or do you think there's something to Charles Hall's claims too?
I, here is I contacted Charles White, offered to interview him. He didn't want to be interviewed anymore. That to me
Charles
is a
Hall
little
with the tall whites, you mean?
did not want to be interviewed by me. I told him I'd keep it. I wouldn't reveal, in my documentary. He's not doing any more interviews. That to me is suspicious. As far as Jason Sand goes, I want to be this remarkable UFO investigator. Until I look into the entire story, I can't comment. What I can comment on is he's got the military DD-214s and documentation that put him at Area 51. And when I heard the surveillance story, I was to monitor eavesdrop on phone calls between government and government contractors and government contractors talking to other government contractors. And I heard this. I stopped with Jason Sand's story. I don't need to know anything else. I don't have to speculate whether it's true or not. I just heard a bona fide story, in my opinion, a story that jives, a story that is not hyperbolic. I've got the DD-214 of what my job was, and this is what I heard. And what he heard was not hyperbolic. It was they're told us they're coming back for their craft and their equipment that was specifically said and the bodies. And so, to speculate on the rest, like the Richard Doty, committing involuntary manslaughter to Paul Benowitz. Hey, until you've talked to the county coroner, the Kirkland Air Force Base, Paul Benowitz's children, trained psychiatrists to ask them, can you induce schizophrenia by whispering aliens are real in someone's ear? Until I talked to the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, I don't touch the Doty story. We don't touch it because I haven't investigated it. So I believe 1000% Jason Sands eavesdropping story. Charles Hall is suspect to me.
I actually believed Charles Hall at first, and I got his books, and it's just he puts himself over continuously in the books like
I'm the
he's a
same way.
Superman. And
Yeah, right.
then yeah, and then it goes beyond the tall whites and he gets into other stuff.
Yeah,
So I don't know, there's some red flags there.
yeah,
And
red
he did
flags.
agree to an interview with me at one point. Then he pulled out because he said he didn't want it to take away from the movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. So I haven't investigated it too much. I believed him in the beginning. Again, like you, I read his book, and then I saw another documentary that he was on, and I just, you listen to it and okay, but yeah, he becomes Air Force weatherman superhero, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I
and
just
another tough guy in his books, beating people up in his books and all this stuff. So yeah, and he's a genius, which
yeah.
he's a good worker. I'll give him that.
Right.
Anyways,
And when you
well,
have you ever heard me on podcast, folks? I'm like, I just want to tell you about I'm the dumbest person that's ever into the ufology world, and I am. And I list my mental maladies like ADD and hyperactivity and, if you're not self-effacing, how do you build rapport and credibility with people? And, so that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so I just kind of raise an eyebrow to Charles White's story. Jason Sands with the eavesdropping, bona fide, in my opinion.
David says, "Are you aware that John Ramirez is
Ramirez.
featured in the Shane O'Sullivan two-disc documentary RFK Must Die? The same John Ramirez, UFO whistleblower."
No, I did not. And, John Ramirez was a CIA agent. I think, what he has to say should be listened to. And again, it's what I did with the alien interview, and I'm not putting that over. I'm just saying, when you're an investigator, even if you're a casual observer in the UFO community, folks, I'm asking you to help you out so you don't get wrapped up too deep in one area. And, you just let the things hit you, let the stories absorb. You just kind of do a interesting, you know, and you have to, because there are some wild, crazy stories. And if you are the ardent skeptic that pushes everything away, well, you're gonna not get the truth. If you're someone that absorbs everything and believes everything, you're gonna miss the truth. So I tell people, just listen, absorb it. Don't react. As a keyboard warrior, put it in your file, put it on the shelf, and see if something else can coalesce. And that's really when I make my decision. When I hear somebody from the 1960s, a naval person, telling me something that somebody in the Navy from the late 90s said, and they said the same thing, two different generations. When I start hearing stuff like that, or Jason Sands' real basic story of the eavesdropping, then I go, that's a nugget that, I need to highlight. So
Someone has never heard you were a pro wrestler, but
yeah,
yes, you were in the
I,
AWA.
yeah, I there is an and I hope Hannibal can have me on one time to talk about how to blow your wrestling career. Or I tell everybody, I'm the most famous pro wrestler you've never heard of. Yeah, I made so many mistakes in my wrestling career with pride, not pushing through doors. Vince McMahon telling me in 1988, give your number to Jay Strongbow. I would like you to work for me. Never following up on that when they didn't call right away. Just showing up as a Southern plantation owner in a white suit when I was hired to work for WCW with Brian Pillman and Johnny Ace, and Ric Flair was there looking at me. This is fucking stupid. So I would like to, and I've got stories that no one has ever heard. I've got Jimmy Snuka, confession to me in the middle of Arkansas late at night. I got a lot of stories that I think your viewers in Hannibal, that you would like to hear, what that have nothing to do with really putting me over. But I wanted to step in the ring one time. Every promoter of value that ever saw me wrestle hired me or wanted to hire me. That's Dick the Bruiser, Jerry Jarrett, Vince McMahon, Jim Barnett, Jimmy Crockett, Bill Watts. But I made a lot of mistakes and a lot of pride of not keeping I never realized in Hannibal, you probably understand this too. I never realized how um, uh, uh, that how pro wrestling, and I hope this doesn't sound bitter, I'm actually cutting myself down. I never understood until 20 years ago how much pro wrestling was a connection business. Hey, can you put the call in? And hey, you're in a locker room, get everyone's contact phone number. I was in the territory days. I did the Memphis territory. I did Watts for a couple of weeks. I'm an old guy, and I in building not building those connections because I was too young. I didn't have a wife and kid at home. I wasn't too concerned about making a full-time living, and I was, happy-go-lucky. Stupid, but I'm alive today. So, but yes, I know I'm not a very popular wrestler, but I did wrestle for the light heavyweight championship of the world on AWA on ESPN, and the AWA was like my Chicago Bears and living in Chicago. So, that was pretty cool.
Well, we'll definitely do the full wrestling
Yeah,
podcast on
I've got
you.
great stories.
I'll try and bang out these last fan questions
Okay.
fast. Do you think they're using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or RC for the remote control for the
Oh my
drones?
god, you have great listeners. Seriously, because they asked great questions the last time I was on. There was just a person, forgive me, folks, Hannibal, forgive me, but there was just a military or drone guy or 2 drone experts, and they said that there's gotta be some sort of, satellite communication rather than Bluetooth or, RFD because they came from so far off into the ocean, and they're going so fast, and they're loitering in the air for up to 6, 7 hours. So, there was some military person or drone expert that believes, great question again, that the drones are being controlled via some sort of a satellite system, like we would control a drone, you know, in a guy in a cubicle in Las Vegas and the drones in Afghanistan. Great freaking question. Great question.
What do you think about the people that say the latest whistleblower for News Nation looks a little bit like an alien?
You know,
What's
he's got the crazy Jon Stewart eyes that I've been people. He's got the, I don't know if that's nerves or yeah, he Russ Russ Coulthart, the reporter, specifically told me his his credentials are impeccable, and he's bringing forth 3 or 4 other comrades, colleagues, other soldiers that were on the mission with him or in the helicopter. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly what Ross told me, but Ross said it's gonna shock a lot of people.
Could orbs be free form plasmatic energy?
Yeah, the pilot, my relative, you love hearing stuff like this. She's like, "Uncle John, it had to be a UFO." But I don't discount, from all my pilot training, we were told about geological orbs that can get formed with the plate tectonics rubbing on each other. And Cannibal, can you believe I'm talking like I can't even remember? But you said,
That's
Uncle John,
dressing room talk.
the plate tectonics rubbing on each other does create anomalous balls, glowing balls. That's a geological fact. Can it create them 40,000 feet in the air? The video that she sent me from her phone, so this is firsthand witness. I took all the shots. It was green, beige, yellow, red, white, green, so it had like 8 different colors. Do geological orbs have, I don't know. But yes, geologically, the Earth does create this type of, orbs. My question is, why all of a sudden we're seeing them everywhere? I go back to the we've peaked the extraterrestrials. And I think it's not hard to extrapolate that the government knows this um, incursion. I'm not going to use invasion anymore because I don't want to be kookified. But this incursion, this arrival of something, these drones might be preparing for that. I don't know, and it might be preparing for you know um, you know, China, some, any kind of military action with Iran. I don't know if anybody knows the two new stealth bombers were released or they were talked about this week. The SR-72 and another stealth bomber that goes hypersonic. It's untouchable by missiles. So, was this also a useful distraction? Because the government loves distraction. Again, I don't think this is a stretch. A useful distraction. They test all these drones, maybe on purpose, maybe not so secretly, and then quietly. Oh, we've got a new hypersonic bomber. Two of them actually, the SR-72, and I don't remember the other name. I just there are no coincidences. Usually, police officers tell me so. I find that suspect.
CR wants to know, do you think that Trump on the 21st is still going to announce what the drones are?
Yeah, I believe Donald Trump uh, has one responsibility early on to the American people. You made promises, you talked about, and we all hate politicians who don't keep their promises. Boy, it'd be a great thing if Donald can can follow through on what he made a promise to the country, which was the JFK files and telling us about the drones. And if he could come out the next day and give us an explanation, oh my God, what a political feather in his hat. What a way to bring the country together a little bit. What if he doesn't let TikTok go under and tells people, "Wait a minute, you said I was gonna be a dictator. I just opened up a platform that has 170 million Americans talking with each other. If I was gonna be a dictator, this would have been the first." You destroy all communication between the citizens, you take their guns, you pit them against each other. He's got a Hannibal, without getting in too much in politics, Donald Trump has a great opportunity to really set the initiative of his administration, and by telling us in the second day that what's going on with the drones.
And as far as if they ever do a disclosure, do you think it's just going to be something basic like non-human intelligence exists out there? Or do you think it's going to be more of a historical record type
No,
thing?
I hate to disappoint people. I have absolutely no confidence in the government on this issue. Remember, I'm a ufologist that champions the government, and I want everyone to know I was one of the progenitors that saved the North Chicago Veterans Administration facility, and they ended up building the $132 million James Lovell Surgical Center. I was one of the progenitors of that, and I'm not bragging. I'm saying that I will do anything to help the government and the military. However, I do not. I have a very poor belief that a negative belief that the government, probably never going to see an alien, a live alien. I know you won't. Next to a president, you might see some incredible footage. You might even see an alien far off in the distance. You're going to see more obfuscation. That's the government. I just think fiction is crazier than the story, and there's too much murder, money, power, control, and now all private corporations have this information in this material, biologic and metal. So they're not gonna release that unless some maverick senator or president can tell private corporations you're exonerated. There's going to be a dispensation like they did in South Africa. I talked about this before on your program. It's the only way there's going to be total disclosure. But no, I do not think we are going to see full disclosure on my lifetime or in anyone else's.
Do you believe there's a UFO base under the ocean? Kayfabe News wants to know.
I absolutely 1000% believe that if you are going to believe any story of non-human intelligence, aliens, UFOs, that you would have to start with, because of the historical context of going back 600 years, 300 years, 200 years, whistleblowers, that without a doubt, some craft are coming from beneath the waters. Absolutely.
Very good. Well, our hour is up, so I really
Okay.
appreciate you coming on and being kind. There's a ton of fan questions on here, so we'll definitely have to have you back again sometime.
Okay.
But what's the overall message you want to get through today to brief it down?
Yeah. Uh, Contact your congressman. If you don't think letters and emails don't work, you're wrong. You're wrong. Three nobodies in 1999 stopped the government for closing a Veterans Administration building. I'm not going to say any more. Three Nujnik no ones stopped the government. So your letters to Congress, your congressmen, your senators will work. Um, controlling our treatment of each other so we can move the UFO narrative forward like human beings. And so Congress takes us more serious, takes the subject matter more serious. And by reading your emails and your correspondence with Congress, you energize them, you give them a foundation to say, this is what my constituents want. We need to tell them the truth. So you've got to get off the couch and get active. That's my summation.